Hello, this is Paul Wing and Little Nipper, ready to tell you some of the Uncle Wiggily stories. Now, every time Nipper barks like that, it's your signal to turn the page in your storybook. You ready? Then here we go. One day, Uncle Wiggily put on his long frock coat that went way down to there. Between his long rabbit's ears, he set his tall silk hat that went way up to there. He put on his little bow tie. He grabbed his red, white, and blue walking cane, which he could twirl and twirl and twirl, and right out of the house he walked. My, he's a fine-looking rabbit with that tall silk hat, said his housekeeper, Nurse Jane Fuzzy Wuzzy, and Uncle Wiggily was so pleased that his pink nose wiggled and twinkled like a star. Uncle Wiggily walked and walked and walked to the grocery store owned by his good friend Uncle Pat Butter, the goat. Did you turn the page? As usual, Uncle Pat Butter was eating Swiss cheese while he poured a pint of milk for Susie Littletail. He looked at Uncle Wiggily and said, "You look much too fancy with that tall silk hat. Take it off." "Oh, no," said Uncle Wiggily. "A tall silk hat is stylish and useful." Just at that moment, Susie Littletail cried, "There's a hole in my pail, and the milk is running out." Uncle Wiggily quickly poured the milk from the leaky pail into his hat. "Susie Littletail," said Uncle Wiggily, "your tall silk hat certainly is stylish and useful." And Uncle Wiggily was so pleased that his pink nose wiggled and twinkled like 2 stars. Uncle Pat Butter poured Susie's milk from Uncle Wiggily's hat into a new pail without a hole. Then Uncle Wiggily, twirling his cane, and Uncle Pat Butter eating some Swiss cheese, took a ride in Monkey Doodle's boat. Suddenly, Monkey Doodle cried, "There's a leak in the boat. We'll all drown." But Uncle Wiggily wasn't worried. With his tall silk hat, he bailed out all the water. "My," said Monkey Doodle, "your tall silk hat certainly is stylish and useful." And Uncle Wiggily was so pleased that his pink nose wiggled and twinkled like 3 stars. Well, back on shore, Uncle Wiggily twirling his cane, and Uncle Pat Butter still eating Swiss cheese, visited a lady pig named Mrs. Twistytail. "I need a vase for some flowers I have gathered," said Mrs. Twistytail. And Uncle Wiggily said, "Use my tall silk hat. It makes a perfect vase." Suddenly, Uncle Pat Butter stopped eating Swiss cheese and ran away. "Where are you going?" shouted Uncle Wiggily. And Uncle Pat Butter called back, "Your tall silk hat saved the milk. It saved the boat. And now it has saved the flowers. It certainly is stylish and useful, and I'm buying one for myself." Uncle Wiggily was so pleased to hear what Uncle Pat Butter said that his pink nose wiggled and twinkled and twinkled and twinkled. One day, Uncle Wiggily's housekeeper, Nurse Jane Fuzzy Wuzzy, said, "Uncle Wiggily, I've just bought a new rug. Will you please carry it home for me?" "Why, certainly," said Uncle Wiggily. He reached for the rug, but suddenly the wind started to blow. A gust of wind unrolled the rug and blew it up into the air. Then another gust of wind blew Uncle Wiggily up into the air, too, and he landed right on the rug. And the rug went flying through the air, carrying Uncle Wiggily with it. Then another gust of wind blew Nurse Jane Fuzzy Wuzzy up into the air, too, and she also landed right on the rug. Now the rug was flying through the air, carrying Uncle Wiggily and Nurse Jane Fuzzy Wuzzy. Then another gust of wind blew Johnny and Billy Bushytail up into the air, too, and the Squirrel Brothers also landed right on the rug. Now the rug was flying through the air, carrying Uncle Wiggily and Nurse Jane and Johnny and Billy Bushytail. Then another gust of wind blew Nanny and Billy Wagtail up into the air, too, and the brother and sister goat also landed right on the rug. Then another gust of wind blew Joey and Tommy and Kitty Cat way up into the air, too, and they also landed right on the rug. Now the rug was flying through the air, carrying Uncle Wiggily and Nurse Jane and Johnny and Billy Bushytail and Nanny and Billy Wagtail and Joey and Tommy and Kitty Cat. Higher and higher flew the rug, way up to the clouds. "Oh, my," said Joey and Tommy and Kitty Cat. "What shall we do?" Oh, my, said Nanny and Billy Wagtail. Oh, my, said Johnny and Billy Bushytail. Oh, my, said Nurse Jane. Oh, my, said Uncle Wiggily. Higher and higher flew the rug, heading straight for the moon. Just then another gust of wind, a great big gust of wind, blew Mrs. Twistytail way up in the air, too. And she also landed right on the rug. Now, Mrs. Twistytail was a very fat pig lady, and she was very, very heavy. When she landed, the rug stopped in midair. And slowly, ever so slowly, the rug began to sink toward the earth. Then it went down faster and faster and faster, and all of a sudden the rug landed with a plunk. And off the rug stepped Mrs. Twistytail, Joey and Tommy and Kitty Cat, Nanny and Billy Wagtail, Johnny and Billy Bushytail, Nurse Jane, and Uncle Wiggily. "I'll never again carry a rug on a windy day," said Uncle Wiggily. And he walked away, twirling his red, white, and blue cane. One day, the two little pig boys, Curly and Floppy Twistytail, decided to play a game with Uncle Wiggily. Around their heads, Curly and Floppy each tied a bright red handkerchief. Over their faces, Curly and Floppy each tied a black mask. And Curly and Floppy each carried a wooden sword. "Now we're pirates," said Curly. "And we're going to capture Uncle Wiggily and hold him for ransom," said Floppy. At that moment, along came Uncle Wiggily, wearing his long frock coat that went way down to there, his tall silk hat that went way up to there, his little bow tie, and his red, white, and blue cane, which he twirled and twirled and twirled. "Uncle Wiggily, you're our prisoner," squealed Curly and Floppy Twistytail. My, said Uncle Wiggily. Well, they marched Uncle Wiggily to a wooden raft and sailed out to the middle of the lake. "Uncle Wiggily," said Curly Twistytail, "we won't let you go until you pay us a ransom." My, said Uncle Wiggily. "What can I give you as a ransom? Not my long frock coat, and not my tall silk hat, and not my little bow tie, and not my red, white, and blue cane. I know what. These 2 lollipops." "That's a very fine ransom," said Floppy Twistytail. And he and Curly sailed the raft back to shore and set Uncle Wiggily free. But the fox and the wolf had seen everything that had happened.
"Wolfie, let's dress up like pirates," said the fox. "We'll look just like the pig boys, and we'll capture Uncle Wiggily, sail him to the middle of the lake, and nibble both his rabbit ears."
Once again, Uncle Wiggily was the prisoner of pirates, but he didn't know that these 2 pirates were the fox and the wolf. Out on the lake, Uncle Wiggily said, "Set me free, Curly and Floppy, and I'll give you 2 more lollipops."
"We're not Curly and Floppy," said the fox. "We're the fox and the wolf, and we're going to nibble your rabbit ears."
Just then, riding toward them in a rowboat, came Curly and Floppy Twistytail. "We'll save you, Uncle Wiggily," they shouted. In Curly and Floppy's boat was a long black stovepipe that looked like a cannon. Curly blew talcum powder through the stovepipe and shouted, "Bang!" And each time Curly shouted, "Bang!" Floppy threw a cabbage at the fox and the wolf. The cabbages bounced off the fox's head and off the wolf's head. The cabbages broke the raft in 2, and it sank on the spot. Quickly, Curly and Floppy pulled Uncle Wiggily out of the water. Thanks to you, my 2 ears weren't nibbled a bit, said Uncle Wiggily, and he gave each of the pig boys another lollipop. One day, Charlie Chick, the rooster boy, gave Uncle Wiggily 10 rooster feathers, a very long feather, then a shorter feather, and shorter 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 feather. What are you going to do with those feathers? Asked Charlie Chick. Wait and see, answered Uncle Wiggily. He painted each of the feathers bright red. Then he sewed them onto his tall silk hat. First he sewed on the long feather, then the shorter feather, and shorter 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 feather. Then Uncle Wiggily made himself a bow and arrow and said, "Now I am an Indian. And I am going hunting." Into the woods went Uncle Wiggily, and there he met his muskrat lady housekeeper, Nurse Jane Fuzzy Wuzzy. "Oh, Uncle Wiggily," said Nurse Jane, "how silly you look playing like an Indian hunter." And as she walked away, she laughed and laughed. As Nurse Jane Fuzzy Wuzzy laughed and laughed, out from behind a tree popped a long, green, skillery-scalery alligator with his long, green, double-jointed tail. "Nurse Jane," said the skillery-scalery alligator, "I think I shall eat you up." Nurse Jane shouted, "Help! Help! Help!" Uncle Wiggily, playing Indian hunter, heard Nurse Jane's cries. "Now I really have someone to hunt," said Uncle Wiggily as he put an arrow to his bow. Zing went the arrow and bounced off the long, green, skillery-scalery alligator's head. Zing went another arrow, and that one bounced off his long, green, double-jointed tail. And away ran the skillery-scalery alligator, double-jointed tail and all. Uncle Wiggily had rescued Nurse Jane Fuzzy Wuzzy, and never again did she laugh at him when he played Indian hunter, with his bow and arrow in his paw and his Indian feathers in his hat, the long feather and the shorter feather, and shorter 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 feather. Thank you, Nipper.